Here's Fritz Weatherby with the answer to the question you've all been wondering about. Whatever happened to Uncle Gus?
These things are filed so deeply away in our minds that most of us are unaware that they are there, these memories. But then something comes along that slams us back to a time, a smell, a song on the radio, something. We are about to visit just such a thing that may have seemed unimportant at the time, silly even. But I think you'll be amazed at how important this was, and amazed also at the depth of your feelings for it.
Let's join Uncle Gus and his friends.
Hi, everybody, and welcome once again to the Uncle Gus Show on a Christmas Eve. Golly gee, this is about the 14th Christmas Eve that we've said hello to you here on the Uncle Gus Show.
The show started back in 1959 when we were running cartoons, Popeye cartoons, in a slot from, I think it was 4:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon. Just one cartoon after the other. And we're standing in the control room, and our boss, Dave O'Shea, came in. He says, "How's things?" I says, "Good." He says, "Why don't you put a funny hat on your head and go in and between cartoons, say something to the kids?" So I said, "Okay."
Yes, children, this is Uncle Gus Bernia. Uncle Gus, who ran the children's show over Channel 9 for 20 years. A note here, there are no videotapes of the Uncle Gus Show. We did manage to find about 30 seconds of Super 8 movie film, which was taken in the studio during the show, and a number of audio tapes of the program recorded at home. And we have some still photos, of course, but no videos, alas. And yes, Uncle Gus is alive and in good health. He's 82 years old now, and he's living in Hawaii, which is where he sat with us and reminisced about the show and the kids and how it all started.
And I looked up at the window at the studio, and there's a little girl out there staring at me. And she was there the next day. So I said, "Well, she come on in. You want to come in?" And she came in, sat down, and we had a conversation. I asked her what her name was and what you do, and she told me, and we were sitting there, and she got through talking. I said, "Look, any of you guys out there and girls want to come in and visit, I mean, I'd love to have you. So come on down to the studio when we're on the air." Well, the next day there was about 50 kids in the studio who wanted to come in.
Hi, Darren, how are you?
Hi.
What do you want to talk about?
About gerbils.
You got a gerbil?
Yeah.
How many?
And 2 pairs. And 1 ugly hamster.
One ugly hamster?
Yeah.
Why do you call him ugly?
Because he's ugly.
We finally got a routine that ended up where I knew everybody's name because I had a sheet, and they sat in a chair, and I knew where they are. And other things we did, little games, and I don't remember. You probably don't remember, but there was a thing called boob tubes.
To this day, I go to flea markets and stuff looking for the boob tubes.
It was a little plastic tube about this tall, about big around, and you had to shake the marbles from the top down to the bottom. And eventually it evolved into a pretty set routine where we had cartoons and we'd do something. But the main thing was talking to the boys and girls who came.
Hey, I like your hat. That's your birthday hat.
Yeah.
Huh? How old are you today?
5.
Are you going to kindergarten now?
Nope. Next year.
Next year?
Yeah.
Do you know your ABCs now and everything?
Yeah.
Let me hear them say them. Go ahead.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, P, Q, R, S, and T, U, V.
I've got my Nose for Trouble book that I won for winning the Smile Contest on the Uncle Gus Show. I think that they just watch you through the whole program, and they kept watching, and at the end they selected somebody to win the Smile Contest, and I was the lucky one that day.
If you were a kid in New Hampshire of a certain age, that age being my age now, the Uncle Gus Show was the be-all and end-all. There were a lot of other options. There was Rex Traylor's Boomtown out of Boston. There was Major Mudd and Big Brother Bob Emery. Plenty of options to choose from, but Uncle Gus was special because you could watch the show and you could see your friends on TV.
Every day after school or Saturday, sit and watch. Friends, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts were all there. They had boob tubes, the marbles that would drop down. He had the Jiffy Pop popcorn.
You ever see a Jiffy popcorn?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I started advertising Jiffy popcorn. The guy that made it and invented it came to me and says, I'll give you case at case, whatever, how many cases you want if you pop it on the air. And the manager says, okay. So I demonstrate every day with the popcorn on a hot plate, and I'd, you know, oh boy, this is good, look at that go, and it would blow up, and I'd break it open. And I had the kids lined up here in the first row, and there was a little blonde girl, beautiful little thing. And she turned to her next door neighbor and says, I wouldn't eat that blank.
You know, these are kids we're dealing with here, so they would be so excited about being in the studio. Occasionally there was some misbehavior, and being the gentle soul that he was, Gus didn't want to be the disciplinarian, so occasionally parents would be called in and kids would be taken to a little area off stage and basically read the riot act about staying on the program.
One time there was a young kid who came in who was just absolutely unbearable. He was screaming, yelling, and punching kids, and I had to get up literally on the air, walk back to the studio, back to the end, pick him up bodily, and take him out and hand him to his mother.
Fred, for the last time, sit down in your chair and don't stand up again, okay? Or I'll have to ask you to go outside.
Stay tuned, because coming up we have the early days. Uncle Gus on radio. And of course, Simon Says.
Do you think you know the Granite States? Well, get ready for Chronicle College and your New Hampshire Pop Quiz. New Hampshire's first television station went on the air on March 26th of what year? Was it A, 1951, B, 1954, or C, 1956? What do you think? Stay with us and find out how much you know about New Hampshire.
Closed captioning of Chronicle brought to you by Pelmac Industries Incorporated. Call the experts at Pelmac Industries for all your security needs.
I'm a food truck man, that's all I drive. I ain't got no boundaries, I don't compromise.
It's truck season, and that means now's the best time to buy a tough new Ford truck. For a limited time, get up to $2,000 cash back or 0% financing. That's up to $2,000 cash or zero financing on whatever truck you choose. From the fun, tough Ranger to the rugged F-150 to the power packed Super Duty, your local Ford store's got the best deal on the hottest selling trucks in America. At your New England Ford dealer.
See this man? When we're done, you won't recognize him. See what happens when 20 people change just one thing.
You're dressing like you're 60.
I look way too old with gray hair.
The bags under my eyes. My eyeshadow. My makeup.
Change just one thing. Wait until you see this transformation. Her first haircut in 33 years. Why hadn't you done this before? Get dramatic results. Tomorrow's Oprah.
Up next.
Who's going to do the map today? Anybody? Okay.
Nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
However you look at it, Zero just got better. Now get 0% APR with zero down payment. Zero payments for 90 days. Or choose $2,000 cash back on every new 2003 Chevy truck and SUV. So roll out, come in, stop by, call it what you want. Just get to your local Chevy dealer today.
There's no place like home for the holidays, and no place like BJ's for holiday shopping with your MasterCard card. It's our huge Home for the Holidays sweepstakes. Just use your MasterCard card at any participating BJ's and you're automatically entered for a chance to win. Over 100 members will win $200 in BJ's gift cards, and you could win a $50,000 down payment on a new home and a $10,000 shopping spree. Your dreams could come true thanks to BJ's and MasterCard.
Who's going to sing for us? You have a song? Come over here. Jason Opry. Sit up here, Jason. What are you going to sing? Sit down.
The deer.
Okay. Go ahead.
The deer and the lion.
Okay.
Deer and the lion got killed.
That's the song?
Yep.
Well, sing it. Go ahead. Oh, the deer and the lion were walking through the woods. The deer and the lion were walking through the wood. The deer
For 20 years, between 1960 and 1980, the most watched children's show in New Hampshire was the Uncle Gus Show over Channel 9. Gus Bernier was the weatherman here at WMUR TV, but every afternoon he also ran a kids' cartoon show that almost every kid in New Hampshire tuned into. It may have been a part of your growing up. Uncle Gus is now in his 80s, and he's retired to Hawaii, which is where he reminisced with us about his days in the Granite State and how he first came here.
Well, I started in radio in 1947. The studio was in the house that belonged to Governor Murphy, and the station MUR was for Murphy, who was one-time governor. I got out of the Army and eventually ended up with the on-the-job training up there. So I was there from 47 until 1980.
Wow.
And when television came along, we got into that and did everything from weather, news, commercials.
My mom and dad brought me down. I was probably about 4 years old. Had a little blue dress on, little frilly ruffles, and little frilly socks, and the whole thing. And I remember sitting in the audience, and we played all the different games, Simon Says, and the Map of the World, and everything. And the one thing I always wanted to do was to crank the Jack in the Box and start the cartoon. So when Uncle Gus asked who wanted to do it, I put my hand up, and he picked me. So I was really excited, so I got to sit in a little chair next to his desk, and I got to crank the music box, and I started the cartoon, and it was Dick Tracy, which was my favorite.
I can remember the cartoons. You know, Uncle Gus used to do Popeye and Olive Oyl and Mr. Magoo, and I think a big one then was Dick Tracy. You can just hear the music, the little merry melodies coming on.
We have another cartoon. Be back and meet some more of our friends and play Simon Says right after this cartoon.
It wasn't just the cartoons that made the show special. It was the fact that the kids got to take part in activities.
Who's going to do the map today? Anybody? Okay. Dean Katsoulis. Dino, what is that state?
Iowa.
Iowa. And what is that?
Alabama.
Alabama. And that one?
Colorado.
Colorado.
I remember the states. You had to answer, you know, questions about the states, and you would win a prize. And it seemed as though every child, that was their goal, you know, to get called up to do that.
Name the states. Everybody who thought they were pretty smart probably got a little dressing down when they got onto Uncle Gus.
You know, they'd come up and I'd have a map with all the blank states on it, and I'd point to it. And, you know, if they named 6 or 7, I'd say, okay, you win, you know them all.
That's 4 down and 2 to go. And what's that one?
Wisconsin.
And?
Virginia.
Very good. Now, how about a hand for that job?
But there was one child who came up one time, and he says, I don't want to do it that way. I says, well, what do you want to do? He says, I want to name all the states and all the state capitals alphabetically. I says, okay, go ahead, and he did.
I didn't get to be picked to do the states. Thank God, because I didn't know my states back then. Simon Says, Uncle Gus was excellent at Simon Says.
I used to love to play Simon Says. I can still pat my head and rub my tummy.
Now, we're going to play Simon Says. I am going to get everybody out. Oh, yes, I am. Oh, yes, I am. Simon Says the game has started. How many have played before? Hold your hands out. Out, 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 out.
They would have people come on the show and perform things. There was one I can remember, a guy would set up this box, and he'd bring a gun into the studio. I don't know whether it was a 22 or a pellet gun or whatever. I can't imagine a 22, but he would shoot these tiny targets from across the room in front of Gus, so everybody could see. Times were different then. Yeah.
Okay, Simon says put up 2 hands. Simon says put down 2 hands. Simon says put up 2 hands. Put down 2 hands. Now put down 2 hands. Simon says put down 2 hands. Put up 2 hands. You guys pretty good.
It was a lot of fun, believe me. But today, I could see the end coming long before I quit, because the children were getting more sophisticated. They used to say I was the flagship of the station when it happened. But And then when Mr. Imes came and bought the station in '80, I could see there's going to be a whole new clean sweep, so I quit, got out before I got booted out.
Well, everybody stand up, put your hands up like this. When I count 3, I want you to yell as loud as you can, "So long, everybody, Simon says so." Here we go. Ready? Take a deep breath. 1, 2, 3!
Coming up tomorrow on Chronicle, history on the market, how you could win an in. Coming up next, a message for Sally.
So, having a good time? What's the matter, baby?
Our customers expect a website that delivers instant results, like Progressive.com. Buy car insurance instantly from the site rated #1 6 times in a row. Visit Progressive.com.
Who claimed the winning Megabucks ticket in Gorham? The story tonight.
On the next John Walsh show, she thought she had a perfect marriage until...
He told me I'm bisexual. I know 99 out of 100 women would have thrown me out.
What would you do? On the next John Walsh show.
Tomorrow at 9.
007 is back. Pierce Brosnan and Halle Berry star in the latest Bond adventure, Die Another Day. And Ice Cube stars in the comedy Friday After Next. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Next, Ebert and Roper.
Saturday at 11:35 on WMUR.
Up next, For the Love of Sally.
Hit the trails this winter with Arctic Cat. Visit the WMURchannel.com and enter to win a sporty Z570 from Arctic Cat. What snowmobiling's all about.
Over the past 20 years, I've learned that Toyota makes a higher quality vehicle. That's just the way it is. And when you see this new Camry in person, you'll see what I mean.
Toyota's out to make Camry the #1 selling car in America with first-time ever special 0% APR financing on every 2003 Camry sedan. That could save you thousands on a car that will last.
But don't take my word for it. Ask someone you know who drives one.
Hurry, the Thanksgiving sales event ends December 2nd.
Hip, hip. You'll cheer too for old Charlie Brown and Winnie the Pooh. It's a Thanksgiving feast.
It's all right here. Everything except you.
So kick off the holidays. Have a ball. We're cooking up laughs from wall to wall.
The rip-roaring celebration of them all.
It's a holiday feast for one and all with a Charlie Brown Thanksgiving followed by Winnie the Pooh. Tonight starting at 8/7 Central on ABC.
Sundays, look who's on TV. Pretty cool. It's Tim Allen in the holiday hit movie that suits him perfectly. The Santa Claus, ABC Sunday, 7, 6 Central.
For 20 years, Uncle Gus Bernier did his daily kids program here over Channel 9. And in that time, 250,000 kids came through the old studios up on Elm Street in Manchester. And a couple million more kids sat at home and watched the show. The goodwill that Uncle Gus generated for the station can be felt to this day. People still stop the station's reporters and tell them about how they had once been on Uncle Gus's program. It was another time. You may remember that Uncle Gus ended every program by saying, "So long, Sally." Most of us thought that Sally was probably one of his own kids. But this is not the case. No, Sally was a viewer, and she is still around. Her mom wrote us a letter about Sally and Uncle Gus, and although we don't have time for the entire letter, let me read from just a part of the last page. She writes, "To be a guest on the Uncle Gus Show and to be seen on Channel 9 was every child's dream. And for many years, Uncle Gus made those dreams come true. At the conclusion of the program each day, everybody stood up, faced the camera, waved and shouted, 'So long, Sally.' Uncle Gus was probably the only one in the room who knew Sally's identity. Soon after my daughter Sally began watching the show, sometime in the mid-60s, I wrote a brief letter to Uncle Gus, telling him his show had great appeal for all children, including the learning disabled. At the time, Sally was attending a day program for the mentally retarded, but her after-school hours were often lonely, and as an only child, she was becoming somewhat isolated. this wonderful program magically provided the friendship and companionship she longed for. And so it was at the time Uncle Gus thoughtfully introduced the custom of saying, "So long, Sally," and how she loved that greeting. Her faithful viewing endured for more than a decade, up to the time of his retirement from Channel 9. Fortunately, I made several audio tape recordings during those happy years. Sally still listens to them. Some of the tapes are more than 30 years old and are wearing out. Her many bouts of illness were made easier by the TV presence of Uncle Gus and his friends, and I believe her recovery from 2 broken legs a few years ago was aided by the sound of his voice in her hospital room. This is a story without an ending, simply because Sally's devotion and admiration for the fine gentleman known affectionately as Uncle Gus will never end. And it's signed, sincerely, Dorothy M. McDonald. You know, if I'd lived my whole life, and at the end of it all I had to show for it was this letter, it would be enough. And so long, Sally.